Okay, now you can hear me. Okay, so I start over. So thousands of years ago, a handful of people knocked down forests so we could eat meat, so they could eat meat. And since then, it has spiraled. Now we have desertifications. We have problems all over the world with lack of water, lack of good air. We have consciously chosen to eat foods we were never meant to do. If you look at, for example, if you look at God's garden, that was just so perfectly made and gave us everything that we needed. So this is how beautiful. For me, it's just as music, just like the circle of life that we just played for you. During the night, the ocean sends mist into the forest. The forest then takes it in and filters it and brings it to us through rivers and streams. And these rivers and streams also goes to the ocean and feeds the whole ocean. Without a forest, we'll have no ocean. We'll have no marine life. We have no kelp. So it's a vicious circle that is happening. So, when you look at nature and the beauty that we were given and everything that has symbiosis, there is an ecosystem. And yes, it did have vibration. Every deer, every cow, every chicken had vibration. And it was for their life. It's for their mature life to enjoy. It was not for us. And so what I've seen, I've been working in this field 45 years. And by the way, we have 8 grandkids. So talk about vibration, talk about energy. It all has to do with that. Every bird, every animal, every insect is working on vibration. And their habitats is gone, many, many places. So this is, Albert Einstein said, look deep into nature and then you will understand everything better. So this is where I grew up. I grew up in Sweden, and I grew up in the forest by the Baltic Sea. And my parents were very natural, so we were chopping wood and we were fetching water and lived an amazing life. And not a tree ever was cut down, of course. If a tree ever died and fell, it would become wood for us to chop. And my dad still lives there, and he's never cut a tree down, and he sees nothing of the ocean anymore. But he's so happy to just leave nature to be. And so we have been very hungry to cut down woods and to, instead of using the plants and the medicines that the forests have for you, we've cultivated plants and we've cultivated herbs. And if you look at the indigenous people, how much they have known, and they've been the eyes and ears for the forest for so many decades, and they know how valuable it is. And somehow we took ourselves away from nature, but we can't take nature out of us, because nature is in all of us. So we kind of, as the Europeans came, they actually made a difference, because they brought with them totally different habits. And they wanted to make sure there were no predators, and they changed a lot. So I'll get to that in a minute. The world lost 550 square miles, according to the World Bank, between 1990 and 2020. This measurement equals an area larger than South Africa. The interconnected web. So forests are ecosystems that are composed of interacting parts These parts include plants, animals, fungi, bacteria, and abiotic components such as soil, water, fire, and climate. So fungus, there's like 70,000 different kinds, and 80% of fungus has the same genetic as we do. So it's not really a plant, it's not an animal, and it's supporting. Look at this, entangling complex symbiotic webs of interbeing, constantly communicating with one another through chemical signals dispatched along the fungal networks that live in their roots is an invisible, astonishing underworld. And this has been discovered very much thanks to Canadian forest ecologist Susan Simard, and you will see her in this next documentary that was made by a German, Wallenben. And he calls it Intelligent Trees. And you know, when I first started to look into and making this PowerPoint, I had no idea how many people are making documentaries now. And it's just amazing. So he says, one thing is that the mother tree suckle their children. They feed the young tree just enough sugars produced by its own photosynthesis to keep it from dying. Trees in a forest of the same species are connected by the roots, which grow together like a network. And if you look at an oak tree, the roots of the oak tree is connected to the next oak tree and to the next oak tree. So the same species are connected to each other. And so fungi feeds the tree nitrogen, phosphorus, and lots of nourishment, vitamins. And of course, it gives it water. And instead, the tree gives it sugar. So how does it give it sugar? So they actually have studied trees at night, and the branches are actually lightly pumping the sugar down. So it's just an amazing system. So here is part of Intelligent Trees.
Bäume sind sehr soziale Wesen und da kümmern sich tatsächlich die Eltern, die Mutterbäume um ihren Nachwuchs. Hier haben wir einen Buchenkindergarten.
I started looking at the root systems and I found that the roots of these different species, when they grew together, they were all intertwined and interlinked together.
The Nuu-chah-nulth people on Vancouver Island, they say hish ish tsawalk, which means everything is one.
Was wir als Baum betrachten, das ist nur oberirdisch. Ein Großteil des Lebens findet aber unterirdisch statt. Also auf einen Teelöffel gehen mehrere Kilometer Pilzfäden, die hier dicht verwoben das Internet des Waldes bilden.
The mycorrhizal network is just below the surface of the forest floors. All of the trees were all linked together in a single massive network. That was sort of the rudimentary understanding of the language of trees.
So imagine how many hundreds of years it took for this system to happen. Imagine the system, the symbiotic system, and what happens when we clear cut, and we then start planting one kind of species. Imagine what happens to the wealth or to the health of that forest. It doesn't have it. So what do we do then? Then we have to spray it. So now we use herbicides, pesticides, and we now get that into our groundwaters. That's gonna now go into the oceans. So it's an awful system that is destroying everything that it was. And it's gonna take hundreds and hundreds of years to repair. So when you hear that we're at the tipping point, that this is now, we take for granted that we have enough of water, we have enough of timber, we have enough of food, but food is totally connected to the soil that the forest makes. We're losing so much topsoil right now that in 200 years, scientists believe that there'll be no topsoil. If we don't have soil, we don't have micronutrients, microbacteria, we cannot exist. Because the same microbacteria that's in the fungi is what we have. So we're totally dependent. It's not like we're a group by ourselves that came from nowhere. We came out of nature, and we've evolved, and we have an enormous responsibility to take care of what we were given. And, you know, every species, every animal, every plant somehow knows exactly what to do. Every animal knows what to eat. They know if they're born carnivore, and they would know if they're born a frugivore or herbivore. We were not born a carnivore. We were never meant to eat any flesh of any kind. So look at the relationship. Plants secrete large amount of specific carbon compounds into the soil that are used by the microbes as a food and energy source, which enhances and improves soil structure. Plants feed and encourage certain microbes. Fungi also protect plants from root disease and attack plant pathogens with the fungal enzymes and produce many vitamins which promote plant growth. So it's a give and take. Relationships. Rainforest, alpine woods, inland forest, and even mangroves with their fellow trees naturally balance the local and planetary weather system. The interrelationship between these botanicals and the life that lives among them is the epicenter of creation on this planet. So you see the weather system. Why do we have drought? Why do we have these enormous fires now? Australia is losing so much land and billions of animals, and and people are dying, and people are getting sick, respiratory problems. The drought is very much due to the forest being cut down, and what have happened in many ways, there is something called energy credits, and there's something called energy footprints, or carbon footprints. And big corporations can actually buy energy credits and pollute as much carbon dioxide as possible. It actually goes totally against any environmental law, but this has been done, and farmers often lease their land out for this to happen, probably not knowing exactly what will happen with it. So we have floods, we have enormous amount of rain. A lot of you see the weather here. The weather has changed. And anybody that says that we don't have climate change, I don't know what planet they're on, because we definitely have it. And, we're all dependent on the sun. The radiation from the sun that's the energy that we all live on. And it has so much to do with the forest, with the ocean. Of course, it's all connected, but nothing lives without the sun. And to steal a joke from Carl Sagan, where he asked somebody, what's more important, the moon or the sun? And the person said, the moon, of course. At night, I need a light. During the day, I don't need anything. So, so the sun, don't take it for granted. And talking about, sunscreen. So we use this terrible sunscreen junk we put on, and now it's killing the coral reefs, and it's hurting the ocean big time. So I know Key West have banned anybody from using sunscreen, and you would think, what's that? So it's like tons and tons of junk that's coming into our sea life and on ourselves. As we're using these chemicals, whatever you put on your body, you realize that you're going to eat. Our founder, Ann Wigmore, she always said, if you can't eat it, don't put it on your skin. And the clothes that you wear, the clothes that are maybe full of synthetic material, that also create enormous chemicals into nature. So underwater forest. So the forest feeds the underwater forest. So the forest desert could extend to the sea. Without healthy forest, there would be no kelp or marine life. The forest brings nutrition and oxygen into the underwater world through rivers and streams. So the forests guard our water, and it's thought that eventually we're going to have very, very poor water quality. Water quality comes from filtering. And, you know, my parents had a well that was 175 meter down, and the water had been filtered because there's underwater veins that filter it naturally. Most of you, like us too, we have city water, and we take for granted that we're going to have it forever. Within 2100, probably 60% will not have good water. And the only way we're going to have good water is because we know how to filter it, and because we can study how to filter it. Most people don't even have enough water or the electric to filter that. So nature knows exactly how to do it. You know, nature is in every way perfect and knows exactly how to heal. But so do you. Every cell in your body knows how to heal itself. But it has to do with energy, with vibration. And if I don't get that from my food, I'm going to lose. The joke will be on me. So our whole lifestyle has to do with get energy, get frequency in your food. Move, of course. Exercise, sleep well, drink enough water. But you look at water and you know, how do I drink pure water? Because now they tested water all over in America. Reuters just came out, some of you might have seen. They just published and said, we have so much stuff in the water now, it's enough to make anybody sick. So tap water is the worst that you can do. Distilled is actually the best way to drink it. So the forest would have taken care of that for you. It was there to filter that. We were meant to be able to drink from rivers and streams. And some of you are my age, and you remember when you could. When I would go up in the mountains of Sweden and just take a cup from the streams and drink it, you wouldn't think of it. It's a cesspool now. You would not think of doing that anymore. And that's very sad for the next generation. They're going to look at the ocean. They're going to look at the lakes, and they're going to say, do I dare to go in it? What infection am I going to get? It's high time we leave the ocean alone. It's high time we leave the forest alone, right? So the ocean, deforestation threatens all our lives by contributing heavily to marine pollution, which is caused by hazardous chemical and particles that enter the rivers that carry runoff from agriculture and other industries. Mass year. So now mass year happens, this happened now last year in Malaysia and many other places. Every 6 years or so, the rainforest has a mass year when it produces flowers and fruits and seeds and giving people a chance to collect the seeds. And this last year, 2019, was an amazing mass year. And I think every scientist now jumped on these trees to carry and protect those seeds. And they're growing plants. They're like 2 meters tall in a greenhouse, and then they plant them. And what a chance, because now we don't have that many years to linger around. We need to take every chance. So that's what science did, big time. Forest insects and tree disease pathogens play an important role in forest health. At low levels, they can improve balance by removing weakened trees from the system. This is their job. They have a one-track mind. You know, we think of them as annoying. They know that they're doing a good job. Terrific termites. You didn't think they were terrific when they were in your house, did you? So, forest termites mitigate the effects of drought, maintaining three major ecosystem processes: decomposition, nutrient heterogeneity, and moisture retention. All termite groups mutualistic relationship with microbes like bacteria, fungi, which enable them to digest cellulose. That's what they do. They're dead wood decomposers. Regulate soil moisture by transporting water upward through the soil. Major component of carbon cycling globally, contributing to plant production. So, look, they did a study at Borneo forest when there was severe drought. How did the forest survive? Termites. They're bringing water up to the tree. They take care of nutrients. So look, a story that happened in our house, we have a sauna, far infrared sauna, and we got termites in it last year. There were no termites in the whole house. And I said to Brian, they're doing their job. They think it's too dry in here. So they're not bad. They have a one-track mind, and they will take care of the trees. They will take care of the forest when it's drought. Everything has its place. Just because we humans thought of everything as predators or annoying, and we started to keep nature far away. We would put the parks like a mile away, and maybe put a few trees in our garden. But you can't keep nature away from you. So it's in you. You are a part of this. You need every movement that's done. You need every insect that's in the nature. So the big ship happened when Europeans came to America. And they brought with them the habits from Europe, which had happened, many, many hundreds of years ago, where they were culturing, they had farming for cattle, and they had, the chickens. They brought with them, actually, the honeybee, and that was not a good thing. And you hear about the honeybee. We had plenty of bees, but the honeybees kills other bees. So I just learned that. It was not a good thing. And they also brought with them the red crawler, which actually is not a good thing. Probably innocently came with the boxes or cages that they had with them. But that also destroyed the floor. But when the population grew worldwide, people killed the predators who were competing with them as they raised animals for food. They began clearing land for agricultural farming. This was the start of the disruption of our delicate ecosystem. So we killed the predators. So we talked to a biologist from Northwest Washington State, and she said, this is the problem. So we killed all the predators. Now we have deers all over the place, deers everywhere, because they have no predators. The bears are gone, the wolves are gone, foxes are gone. There is a reason why we have all these animals to take care of a system. So now people were told, get your guns out there, shoot all you want. Terrible, terrible, because these deers have their families. They are mothers, they are fathers. It's not their fault that we created a system where they now are a victim. In the US, over a 200-year period, between 1600 and 1800, 80% of the forest past coast, east of the Appalachian Mountains were removed. This destruction of Earth's fauna and flora marched west until most natural forests no longer exist. This happened in Europe hundreds of years earlier, and even before this time in the Middle East. So the environmental loss. Most affected regions are the Amazon rainforest, and that's for cattle. That's purely to grow and they grow the feed and to have cattle. Sumatran jungles, that is for the palm oil, growing palm trees for palm oil. And British Columbia is timber, that's logging. And we're losing so much. These lands have been specifically targeted for deforestation for a few reasons, but for overall gain, for human gain. 10% more rainforest will be destroyed in the next 36 years. By 2050, cropland will have expanded by 42%, and fertilizer use increased sharply by 45%. Over 2009 levels, a further tenth of the world's pristine tropical forests will disappear over the next 35 years. We just had a guest from Brazil. Of course, the rainforest goes in South America, so many countries, but you hear very much about Brazil. And he said there are places where only 5% of the rainforest exist anymore. So it's going very fast. It's going very fast. And you know, the rainforest only covers 2% of the Earth, and the forest covers a third. A third of the Earth is covered by forest, 2/3 is the oceans. So imagine 2%, but 50% of the plants and the animals, they habit there. That's their habitat. So we use these fertilizers. These goes into our water, it goes into our food, and they give us problems, like anything from neurological problems, like you have Parkinson, you have MS, you have autism, you have cancer, you have the respiratory problem. It just goes on and on and on. That's how we pay for this. And you know, working in this field for so many years, it's like people are getting sicker. People are not getting healthier. You keep hearing that, oh, we're getting healthier. No, we're eating more meat than ever. We're drinking more milk. We have more dairy products than ever. And, you know, you will hear Colin Campbell later, and of course his research, the China study, will tell you dairy is the most cancer-causing of all food, #1. So when did we ever think that we needed to drink cow's milk, drink milk from another species? It's just, it's mind-boggling that we even went that far. And that we went that far maybe in wartime when there was nothing, maybe that could have happened. But when you look at all the plants in the forest, I could live on the things in the forest. There are, Dave, what's his name? I get it soon. He brought about designing a polyculture in your garden. You could actually plant so many things that naturally would be in the garden and in the forest, and you could plant them to have them more readily. But we've really got out of what nature, so we kind of are starting to see things like this. And you've seen this in the Middle East for a long time, and you probably take for granted that a desert, it looks like this. It's always looked like that. Well, lush green forest spread over the entire Middle East until man put it down for energy, housing, commerce. Worldwide, hundreds of millions of acres are now becoming vast wasteland. So they think that Amazon rainforest, the way it's going now, is going to become savanna by 2100. What's going to happen to the indigenous people that live? 80% of their livelihood is in here. Model experiments predict a large-scale substitution of Amazon forest by savanna-like vegetation by the end of the 21st century. So this is Pacific Northwest, and you can look at this in Oregon. We were just up in Oregon, and this is what it looks in a lot of places. Clear cutting has led to over 500,000 acres of deforestation in just the last 15 years. due to weak logging regulations, similarly to Brazil and Indonesia. So when we cut like that, you can imagine where the habitats are. We lost habitats for so many animals. They're going to go extinct, and so many are going extinct because we can't mess with nature and all the plants. And when you think about the fungi system, the root system, how connected they were, it's an enormous loss that's going to take hundreds and hundreds of years. We need to actually plant 10 trillion trees by 2030. So we better go to work. We better all start planting. We've planted at the Institute in Florida 3,500 trees, and we constantly bring more trees in to bring the beauty and the health that nature brings all of us. Madagascar. You see Disney Madagascar, and you think, boy, they must have all this. No, they don't. Madeira Forest once stretched to the horizon. Now it's smaller than Brooklyn's Prospect Park. Madagascar broke from Africa and India about 100 million years ago. It was so rich in nature. 4 out of 5 plants and animals are unique here. And there is the pine called screw pine. There's 83 species of it. So Brazil is, of course, what you hear most about because it's gone so fast. Since May 2019, it actually grew enormous. It took off like more than 30% than any other year that they cut forests down. And this is Carlos Noble, who is professor at University of Sao Paulo, and he says, today we stand exactly in a moment of destiny, and the tipping point is here now. And, you know, I think most of us have a different view of it because we're living indoors. You know, 90% of our time is indoors. And we don't spend time enough to see what's happening. Or we're living in a place that don't talk about it, where government are not conscious to talk about it. Where, for example, the Paris Amendment that so many countries wanted to be a part of and go for it and make a big change. We're not in it. America's not in it. And it's really, it's mind-boggling again that we that normally have been such a light in the world and conscious about what we've been doing is right now doing the opposite. So, but the rest of the world knows, India knows, South America knows, Europe knows that we need change. We need big-time change. And the thing is that most people think, well, okay, so we got to go free. Our cars got to be electric, and we got to move the emissions down. And they're missing the trick. Yes, it will help. But the biggest trick is that we all need to go plant-based. That is the only thing that's going to save all of us, save forest, because as long as we eat meat, as long as we eat those burgers, and I'm talking meat burgers, as long as we're eating that, as long as we want chickens, as long as we want milk, as long as we want eggs, we will have deforestation, and that definitely will go on if we don't change. So you each can take this responsibility of going plant-based. And if you go plant-based, you are doing an amazing thing for the world to come, for the kids, the Gretas that are out there. And I'm so proud, I'm being Swedish for Greta that's talking and being an example for the youth. And yeah, let's give her an applause. She's sacrificing her time, she is not finishing school. This is so much more important for her than anything else. And, we look at these things and we're like, well, we're all dependent. We're all under one closed globe. We have one atmosphere. So what's happening in Brazil happens to us. When the nuclear accident happened in Fukushima, you know that radiation is here now. It's on the East Coast. It's in Florida. It's up here, right? We're not like we've been saved. Oh, it happened far away. It happened in Russia. Being Swedish, Chernobyl, when that happened, that all came with rain, and that rained all over Swedish land. And there was so much cesium that was counted in our soil that really, for 100,000 years, you really should not call anything organic, wherever that fell. So 100,000 years is what Chernobyl will take to be inhabitable. So we're dealing with energy, and we're dealing with what we can do, and that's going plant-based. So India, of course, were also taken care of by big corporations, and I should say not taken care of, because that was just business. But India has always been aware of taking some sacred parts, sacred lakes, sacred water sources, sacred forest. So here is an Indian leader, elder, who says, the wisest of them all, who owns this forest? Not the government, nor any of us. The real owners are not yet born. We are merely custodians. If we look at ourselves as custodians, if you take care of somebody else's house, would you leave it in a mess? You would probably leave it impeccable by the time you're done. This is everybody's house. This is what we have to leave in perfect shape for next generation. So today, over 60% of agricultural land is used for meat production. And now we're shipping meat, rainforest is shipping meat out to China, India, all the developing countries too. Because, hey, they want to be like the developed countries. They want to eat like we do. Little do they know, they're going to get the same diseases that we have. And they're going to pay a big price. And this is Mahatma Gandhi. And he, of course, was a plant-based eater. He said, the good man is the friend of all living things. Deforestation and endangered species. So once their habitat is lost, they are on their way to extinction. According to recent estimates, the world is losing 137 species every day due to deforestation. A horrifying 50,000 species become extinct every year. Jaguars. The Amazon forest has one of the largest blocks of jaguars, which are near threatened. Their habitats have been destroyed due to forestation, leaving them vulnerable for poachers. They have nowhere to hide. The spider monkey, black spider monkey, is an endangered species due to the deforestation in the Amazon. They rely on trees as their habitats, which are being destroyed. These animals do not adapt to new habitats, resulting in their decline as a species. I always think of, some of us are much easier to get to new places, and we're fine putting our roots down wherever we are. And some people stay in the same town they were born, and they're never going to leave, and they don't have any reason to leave. And, imagine if your habitat was gone. The lemur, the silky Sifaka lemur, is a critically threatened species. The lemur is considered one of the rarest animals in the world. Its habitat is the Kirindi forest, and it's endangered due to deforestation. Tigers. The Greater Mekong River Forest area is the largest combined tiger habitat in the world. And this endangered species has an estimated population of less than 4,000. I think in future, probably your grandkids will see them only in the zoo. The few that survived poachers and the extinction. So birds, so every fall, millions and millions of birds fly south, and then they come back to their habitat. They come back to breed and to eat and to flourish. So by 2050, 2/3 of all birds in North America will be gone. Similar results globally due to rising temperature and loss of habitat. Horrible. A third, American birds, we already lost a third. We already lost a third. So, and these are pollinator. These are big time. And here comes the most important pollinator in the world, and that's the bees. According to the Royal Geographic Society of London, bees have already entered into extinction due to the massive deforestation and uncontrolled use of pesticides. Agriculture depends 70% on these insect pollinators. So when they go to flowers that's been sprayed with insecticides and pesticides, they don't find their way back to the hive. They get dementia. They actually get dementia. Well, what happens to us? Imagine what happened to us. But without bees, we won't be here. You know, without bees, there'd be no human race, for sure. Government and corporate insanity. Yes, you heard about this, weather modification, geoengineering. So this is when they spray. You see these sprays, and you know it's not cirrus clouds and cumulus clouds, and it's not an airplane that just went by. These look totally different, right? And that's aluminum, that's sulfur, and this is solar radiation management and greenhouse gas removal. Synthetic aerosols have the ability to reduce ozone layers and heighten the risk of exposure to ultraviolet radiation. This increases ocean acidification, additionally causing imbalance for the climate. Politicians are leading us to an edge of a cliff and need to be stopped. So, yeah. So let me tell you, this started in the 1950s, and it was a military madness. They were actually trying to change the weather for other countries like Russia, and even agriculture for other countries. So they began manipulating weather patterns to use against enemies. These outrageous programs have not stopped and have become weapons for economic, social, and political change. HAARP in Alaska is America's electronic epicenter for such sinister Frankenstein-like science. So this, together with deforestation and extinction of species, we wonder. Now, Lyme disease, it's hard to talk about the forest and not talk about Lyme disease because you get bit. And every time you get bit, you wonder, am I going to get Lyme disease? So it started in the 1975. Maybe it was recognized much, maybe it was out there much longer. You know about the Plum Island outside Connecticut. And so there was an unusual outbreak of arthritis near Lyme, Connecticut. And so ticks has a 2-year cycle, okay? And they mate and they lay eggs in the spring. And there's 3 stages. The middle stage is actually the nymph is the one that hits us the worst. And they can't jump or fly, so it's just by walking by the bushes or grasses that they get back on us. And according to CDC, more than 300,000 cases are diagnosed each year, probably much, much more. So then you wonder, how on earth did this happen? Is it a biological warfare? So right now, 2020, the amendment passed by the House would require Pentagon Inspector General to examine whether the Department of Defense experimented with ticks and other insects regarding its use as a biological weapon between the years of 1950 and 1975. So that's the question, and that's called the Smith Amendment, and you can actually support it with your own senator. You can support the Smith Amendment. He's had it up many times, but this time I think it's so many people supporting it, and the more you all support it, it probably will be looked on. You know, a lot of things pass because they're not looked on. And this is the real deal. Of course, either it was intentionally sending out these biological warfare ticks and other insects, or it happened by mistake. So carbon dioxide is a deadly gas, yes. At some point, climate change will start to make further increase in photosynthesis. Remember, the sun is everything. Impossible due to increasing heat stress. The more carbon dioxide, the more warming. Scientists predict that on our current path, we are going to raise temperatures by 6 degrees, melting both ice caps and allowing the water to rise to the Statue of Liberty's elbow. It takes 7 meters. 7 meters. If both ice caps melt, it will raise the water level 7 meters, which is up to the elbow. So we're already raising it between it's some places it's 2 feet, it's between 0.1 and 2 feet. So some places, islands are disappearing. Islands many are just disappearing. People have to move. There will be definitely move in future. You know, if you're living on the ocean, a lot of people will have to move inland. That's the only way once it starts racing. Because unless we start really rebuilding what we've turned down, our lives and our health. So not living in a natural environment with trees causes higher mortality. Look at this, from heart and respiratory disease, according to an 18-year study by Jeffrey Donovan and the Pacific Northwest Research. So forests contribute to the livelihood of 1.6 billion people. More than 1.6 people around the world depend to varying degrees on forests for their livelihoods. Look at that. They're picking plants. They're picking herbs. Their livelihood very much is also now selling it to herbalists and pharmacy. Pharmacy big time are buying up this. It's actually the pharmaceutics that they make out of the products they bring in is a $6 billion business a year. And do you think they get anything of that? Hardly any. So it's not like it's helping them. And they have less and less to work on. So this is an environmental lawyer, one of our former guests. He said, I visited a tribe in northern Wisconsin. They have the oldest cultivated forest in North America. Their chief, hundreds of years ago, said, we will start to harvest the dead trees at this end of the forest and follow the sun until we reach the other end of the forest and not cutting a single healthy tree. They make furniture, housing, etc., without mass cutting, just dealing with dying trees. So they always have an active, growing, and sustainable forest. There are no clear cuts. Have anybody heard about the Empress Tree? So Empress Tree is amazing. It is, in China, it's totally sacred. And it grows in the northeast. It grows in the southeast. And it regenerates 7 times. You can actually, in 10 years, it grows to about 20 feet. And if you cut it, it will come back 7 times. And these leaves and flowers are pure medicine and edible. And the flowers smells like vanilla jasmine. Can you imagine that aroma? And it's become an investment thing for people that like to do green investments. And so now this World Tree business have figured out how to give trees to farmers for free, and investments pay for it. And if you invested, let's say, 1 acre, that would take care of the carbon footprint for you for life. So, but imagine what we get out. Now this is amazing wood. So this wood doesn't warp, doesn't take moisture. So you can build with it, you can make the kitchen, all the cabinets, and it is taking about 11 times more carbon dioxide out of the air than most other trees. So how do we get carbon dioxide? Well, all trees take in carbon dioxide. Fungi store it underground. Your coral reefs in the ocean stores carbon dioxide. So how much can we store? What's happening in Australia now, it's like it's double the amount of carbon dioxide than they ever should have in a year. I mean, the fires are giving them so much that they wonder, the trees cannot absorb it. There is not enough to absorb it. So it's going to be a problem for all of us because we are all in one bubble. Native plants and modern agriculture. Many native plants that are indigenous to global forests are very nourishing. It's ironic that we knock down woods to create farmlands growing less nourishing plants. So Hippocrates, whose name the Institute have, you're talking 460 BC. Hippocrates classified herbs into their essential qualities of hot and cold, moist and dry, and developed a system of diagnosis and prognosis using herbs. The number of effective medicinal plants he discussed was between 300 and 400 species. But he would also classify our emotions as working on earth, fire, wind, and earth. You got it. And so he was far ahead. Walt Whitman said, "Now I see the secret of making the best person. It is to grow in the open air and to eat and sleep with the earth." Don't you always feel like that? Yes, solutions. So now, the healing power of the forest. After years of careful study, Dr. Lee, a Japanese medical doctor, has found that spending time in a forest can reduce stress, anxiety, depression, anger, strengthen the immune system, and improve cardiovascular and metabolic health, and boost all over our health. So they realized that Japan, for example, is 2/3 forest. It's a lush forest, but where do everybody live? They live in Tokyo. Like the 12 million people are mushed into one city, and 90% of their time is spent indoor. So they actually have a prescription now that's called forest bathing. Well, in Japanese, it's shinrin-yoku. It's a term that makes taking in the forest. It actually means just walking in the forest and taking it in. So it doesn't mean that we're just going to throw ourselves in the leaves and bathe in it. It means walking in it and taking it in. So there was a study, vegan diets impact the environment 84% less compared to mainstream cuisine. So this came in the Lancet, which is one of the most prestigious and oldest peer-reviewed medical journals, that eating a vegan diet, plant-based diet, has less of an environmental impact than one that includes meat, dairy, and eggs. Much less. In fact, 84%. So we need to act quickly, we need to act intelligently, holistically, and globally. And so what can we do? So, because if I don't live in a forest, if I have a house or an apartment and it's in the suburb and it's not close to all that beautiful that forest can give, I need to bring plants into my home, so, and to my office. And did you know that your home could be 7 times more polluted than being in a big city? What about the floors you have? What about the rugs you have? What about the formaldehyde in your furniture? So, you know, there's so many products that you probably have at home that is outgassing a ton of chemicals, and plants pick it up. They not only pick up carbon dioxide, they pick up the other chemicals too. So why do we feel better in the forest? We are able to receive immune boosters from aerosols. Now, these are natural aerosols, such as camphor, which is working on our respiratory tract, limonase, which is an anti-cancer agent, and more. These compounds help to naturally relax and restore the body. That's why it smells so good in the forest, and everything works that way. Taking at least 20 minutes out of your day to stroll or sit in a place that makes you feel in contact with nature will significantly lower your stress hormone levels. That's the finding of a study that has established for the first time the most effective dose of an urban nature experience. Healthcare practitioner can use this discovery to describe nature pills in the knowledge that they have a real measurable effect. Well, so we have to do research for everything. Okay, so now it's research that it's really good to go in the forest. It's a funny thing, but I guess that's the only way we believe things. So plants clean the air. The EPA estimates that most Americans are exposed every day to indoor air contaminants that can lead to serious health problems, including cancer, respiratory ailments, fatigue, and headaches. Houseplants are not only an attractive addition to any home, but they also moonlight as efficient air purifier. Houseplants become more efficient over time, while HEPA air filters become less effective over time. Houseplants are also less expensive and naturally more attractive than any HEPA filter unit will. So if I have a small room, one plant is enough. If I have a big room, take a bunch of plants, because realize that they're doing you a favor. They're picking up chemicals. Of course, I want to get rid of chemicals that you put into the house, like the furniture that have formaldehyde, the floors that are fake wood and that outgasses. So many things that you can do and just clean up. And this is a Norway author. His name is Jørn Viumdal, and he wrote a book called Skogluft, which means forest air. He did a 30-year research how we can bring the forest into the house. And so his research for sure is telling you that it absolutely is important to bring plants in for your own health. And he says, get flower boxes and there's a special plant, and it's funny, that's the only one I ever have because it's so easy. We can be gone for 3 weeks and they're just as happy when I come back. And so that is called golden posers, but it's also called, in America, it's called money plant. Yeah, you know them. And so he says, put some wood pieces up on the wall, put hooks on it, and hook up a bunch of plants. So you're actually making a wall. Or you spread them like you want. But that was his idea, just make a big wall of it. And he says, use a full spectrum light in the ceiling above and put it on a timer, 7 to 7. And of course, in Norway, Sweden, the Scandinavian countries, we need a lot of light. So this is helping us that way too, making us feel better because it's so dark. Use 1 gallon watering can and water only every 3 weeks. Most of us, when we have plants, we overwater and they don't like it. And leaves turn yellow. It doesn't mean it's sick. When they're at the end of their lifespan, now the plant takes its nutrients back and in its roots, and it's a sign of health. So you just pick them off. And this is from the book Living Edible Forest. And it's mainly telling you how you can grow things. You can make a polyculture in your own garden. And, you know, this is in the forest naturally. It was all given to us. Walnuts, almonds, pine nuts, persimmons, pear, juniper berry, blueberries, gooseberry, passion flower, onions, chicory, dandelions, summits, comfers, nettles, strawberries, edible mushrooms, etc. All naturally blooms in forests, but can be encouraged by your seeding in desired areas. So stop using palm oil. Let's not support that. But if you go into the supermarket, 50% of packaged supermarket products are full of it. And it's high in saturated fats, increasing heart disease and many other things. And the problem is it's led to 25% of deforestation in the Indonesian rainforest. So, and why do you want to use products that have no nourishment in the store anyway? If you look at anything packaged and you don't know what it says in the ingredients, if you don't know those names, please don't buy it, because obviously it's something so terrible that you never heard it before. It doesn't have anything to do with from a natural source. It's been chemically derived, right? The more that you go into the supermarket, you only go to the produce section where it says organic, and you, of course, support organic farmers market, and, you know, start growing sprouts. Now, you have amazing sprout growers here, and all over the world, you have a lot of people growing sprouts and making juices, making wheatgrass for you that have so much energy, frequency, nourishment, and will bring health back to you. Right before I left, one of our guests has been here 2 weeks, and with high blood pressure, diabetes, and severe weight problem, and said, you know, I'm so grateful, I never felt like this. It's like I'm finding myself. And this is what people find when they go through day by day, eating a live diet, drinking live juices, and drinking plenty of good water that you can trust, you know. So you need to find out how you can get water or make water. Get a distiller, it's the easiest way. Internationally, $60 billion yearly is spent on medicinal plants. Most of these botanicals are harvested in healthy forest. Especially 50% is from the rainforest. Globally, there are 50,000 known plants providing medicine that is pure, unadulterated, and effective. All pharmaceutical drugs starts from either plants or rocks, and then are manipulated into man-made chemistries. Yeah, so are we getting sick because we're lacking drugs? Again, are we getting sick because we're lacking drugs? Is it a drug deficiency? No, right. It is a healthy lifestyle deficiency, big time. So you can take the first step today and become plant-based. Yes, you probably will have some detox when you go plant-based. Not a big deal. Drink plenty of water. Make juices. Make juices that will give you nourishment, like not fruit juices to begin with, for sure, because fruit juice brings you all that sugar, and it's very hard for your body to detoxify. It will get excited. So vegetables, sprouts. 2/3 of the rainforest plants have cancer-fighting properties. This is where we should go, right? This is due to the photon saturation from the sun to tropical regions in the world. Harvard biologist Eduardo Wilson exposed that 137 rainforest plants and animals alike go extinct every single day. Additionally, 36 species disappear daily that we have not yet identified. So Nordic and Baltic power, being from Sweden, of course, this is very interesting. Vikings literally used plants to prevent disease. They used kelp. And kelp had loads of calories for them, loads of protein, and it helped them heal the wounds from their wearing conquest. Many of these plants, such as lichen, lycopodium, arnica, are perfect examples of medicine now used for thousands of years. And you know, they had many gods. They had like 15 different gods, and the sovereign god was called Odin. And Odin was the one that was the wise. He talked of wisdom and truth, and he lived on top of a tree. He was the one that took care of the forest. And he had elves to help and help people with medicine from the forest. So, you know, it's been traditions of learning how the medicines really come from the forest. And there were some bad guys. They were called troll. And troll were evil. And if you know what I mean about troll, yes, they are evil. There are a lot of trolls out there. They're probably listening right now. So aspirin, white willow, which is best known, grown in humus-rich deep forest, was first utilized by the Greek as the original aspirin. This is what we use at the Institute. We use the natural white willow, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic if I have a headache, if a beginning of having a cold, and of course, high fevers, people have to take care of the best way they know, either with the doctor's help or with natural. We have 4 children, and they have never had a drug in their life. So aspirin was white willow. And aspirin, the latest thing about aspirin, did you hear that? Women should not use aspirin. It had its severe side effects. Get on white willow. White willow, every health store has that. So Greeks used that long time ago. Now, bamboo and hemp are not the recipe, well, look at this, to create natural highs and earthy bongs. They are the 2 most important plants to clean carbon out of the air and at the same time nourish the soil during its growth. And they grow very, very fast. These are so smart that you plant them, they grow fast, they fix your soil, and they fix your air. So making choices that protect the environment. Yes, recycle. Yes, be aware of plastics. And I know up here in New York is going to ban plastic bags. Fantastic, fantastic, yes. And so why can't we bring our own freaking bags? What's the big deal, right? Use natural fire for your own body. Use only biodegradable products in your household. So what is that? If it's biodegradable, goes out in nature, in our rivers and streams, in our ocean, it will be fine. Miami had to ban pesticides like Roundup because it's destroying the whole coastline and the coral reefs. So, you know, it's big time. You don't want to have anything in your household that your grandkids could get into and die from. Just use products that are naturally. You have Shackley, you have 7th generation. There's so many private label too that's coming. Don't abuse water. Yeah, we don't have enough water. We don't have enough pure water. We think we do because we live in a city or suburb and we can use all we want. Most people in the world don't have pure water. Be sparing with electric, yeah, and that is a vicious circle too. When we're going out of a room, we shut the lights off. We take the fans off. Why do we need all that? Most of the year, Brian and I, we don't have our air conditioning off. Being in Florida, that's a big deal. But we shut it off in October and we put it on in May. The less we use, the better. Get used to the temperature where you are. You know, naturally, you are in a place where it's going to be pretty cold, and summer is going to be better. Choosing organic, GMO-free. Very, very important. If you hear Jeffrey Smith, who's a good friend of the Institute, and who single-handedly started the GMO, that he's responsible for that. We actually know that there's genetic manipulated foods and that we shouldn't have it and what it does. So, but GMO, when it says GMO-free, that's not enough. You need to go organic GMO-free, okay, from now on, because otherwise you still have pesticides and fertilizers. Yeah, you don't have the genetic problem, but you have all the other stuff. So look at this. People are planting trees. Officials said that over 350 million trees have been planted in Ethiopia within a 12-hour span, potentially breaking the world record for the most trees planted in one day. And that was Prime Minister Ahmed is at forefront of the project, the Green Legacy Initiative, aiming to curb and counter the negative impact of deforestation and climate change in the drought-prone nation. It's amazing. And Thailand, last year, they planted 1 million trees in 1 hour. And that took 160,000 people. So it doesn't say how many people did this, but I can imagine a lot of people had to plant for this to happen.